Welcome back to JForrest English. I'm Jennifer, and today we're going to learn English with the news. We're going to read a news article together, and you'll learn a lot of advanced vocabulary, advanced expressions, and advanced grammar. Let's get started.
Let me read the headline. 5 things to know before the 2023 Tour de France. Are you watching the Tour de France? Let me know in the comments. To be honest, I'm not much of a sports fan, but I know that it's a very popular event around the world. 25th start outside France. Now notice here, we're talking about 5 things. So this is the first thing to know. And you may have noticed that here I said France, and here I said France. That's because the name of the competition is Tour de France. Tour de France. The pronunciation is the French pronunciation. And in French pronunciation, you would say France, France. But in English, we pronounce the name of the country France, ants. So a more nasal A sound, ants. 25th start outside France. So when I'm referring to the country, I will say it like how I say it in English, France. But I will pronounce the title the way that most people pronounce it, which is Tour de France. The tour will kick off outside France for the 25th time. Notice here they have the 25th time. We need an article here because 25th is an ordinal number. And we always use articles with ordinal numbers. For example, I work on the 4th floor. The 4th floor. So you can't just say, I work on 4th floor. This is grammatically incorrect. You have to say the 4th floor. So don't make that mistake. Let's also look at kickoff. This is another word for start. For start. When you officially start, and we generally use this when you officially start a project in a work context, an event in a sports context, kickoff. Kickoff. So this means start. Now, we also use this as a noun. So you can say, when is the kickoff? The kickoff. And I know it's a noun because I have an article. Without it, when is kickoff? That doesn't sound right. When is the kickoff? And this would be something specific. When is the project kickoff, for example? And it's asking, when does the project kick off? That would be the verb form. When does the project kick off? And that simply means start, but just know that we do commonly use this in the noun form and the verb form. The tour will kick off outside France for the 25th time. It will be the second start, again, ordinal number, second. So we have an article, the. I'll highlight that for you so you remember. It will be the second start from the Spanish Basque country after San Sebastian in 1992. After 2 stages entirely in Spain, the peloton heads for Bayonne in France. Heads for, we use head for or to, talking about the direction you're going. So the direction you're going. Direction you're going. For example, let's head to the mall. Let's head to the mall. So this is saying let's go to the mall. It's just the direction you're going. Let's go to the mall. It's very commonly used. Let's go to the mall. Here, when you use for, it's more referring to the place as a entirety, which you can do. Let's head for the beach, but you could also say let's head to the beach because for is only used in specific cases and it might be difficult to understand when to use it. Because of that, I recommend just using to because it's always correct. The Peloton heads to Bayonne in France. That is correct. So I recommend using to. Now, the Peloton. This confused me because when I hear Peloton, I think the brand Peloton, just like Nike is a brand. Have you ever heard of Peloton stationary bikes? So this is a Peloton. It's simply a stationary bike. So I didn't understand what this meant when I first read the article because I am not familiar with the Tour de France or the cycling world. So I put this in the dictionary and I learned that in a bike race, Peloton refers to the main or largest group of riders. So a peloton is a group of riders and it's the main or largest, but we only use this specific to a bike race. So I hope that makes you feel a little better because even myself as an English teacher, I learn new vocabulary all the time, especially when it's specific to a industry like the cycling industry or medical industry, industries that I'm not that familiar with. So now we both learned what a peloton is. I put the definition here. Let's continue. Cities pay dearly. When you pay dearly in this case implies a lot. I had to pay dearly for a ticket to the Tour de France. That means you had to pay a lot of money. I had to pay dearly for a ticket to the Tour de France, which I'm sure is true. It's probably quite expensive, especially to get good seats as well. Cities pay dearly for the right to host the Grand Départ, which race organizers insist expands the international influence of one of the biggest sporting events in the world. Okay, the Grand Départ. Départ in French means to leave or to start. So it's the big start. So when you start the race. Of course, French speakers are probably going to correct that and give the more accurate description, but that's how myself as an English speaker would describe it. So they insist. They say, and they say with a lot of belief or a lot of opinion behind that. They say it once and then keep saying it. They insist expands the international influence of one of the biggest sporting events in the world, which they're saying the Tour de France. I didn't know the Tour de France was that popular, to be honest, but probably just because I don't follow cycling. So to insist, it's you say it forcefully. I guess that would be how I would explain it. To say something forcefully. So sometimes someone might say, they might offer you something like, oh, please have a piece of cake. And then you might say, oh, no. And then they'll say, no, I insist. So I want you to have a piece of cake. I'm saying it again and I'm saying it forcefully. And then you'll be like, okay, I'll have a piece of cake. So I wrote that dialogue here for you. Let's continue. So the next point is that it's a very mountainous. Mountainous simply means that there are a lot of mountains. So it's an adjective describing it. A lot of mountains. Very mountainous. So is your city a mountainous city? Are there a lot of mountains or a lot of hills in your city? My city is not very mountainous, I would say. With nearly 56,000 meters, here nearly means almost, so it's an approximation, almost, with nearly 56,000 meters of climbing, a record 30 passes, 5 French mountain ranges, so that's why they're describing it as mountainous. There are 5 French mountain ranges in this one area, and a single time trial. This tour presents a tough profile that favors climbers. So if you are a good climber on a bike, of course, so if you're good at going up steep hills, going down, going back up, then the race, the tour favors you, which means you are in a better position to win. So you might say the company favors men over women. You hear that a lot. The company favors male applicants over female applicants, which obviously is not a very good thing. So they're giving the preference towards, the company favors. So in this case, the tour favors climbers. You'll notice here that favors has a U in it and mine does not. This article is from The Guardian, which is a British news article, and in British spelling, they add a U between OR, and then in American English, we don't add a U between O and R. The pronunciation is exactly the same. Favors, favors. No difference in pronunciation. Both spellings are correct, but if you're writing in American English, then you should use the American spelling. And if you're writing in British English, you should use the British spelling. Our next headline. Now, I Googled how to pronounce these names, and I probably won't say them correctly, but I tried. So I'm sorry if I don't say them correctly. Pogačar, this one was a little easier for me. Pogačar, Vingor. I think it was Vingor. Pogačar, Vingor Summit Duel. Notice the pronunciation here. Duel. When there's a duel, it means there are two people competing against each other. A duel. You don't hear this a lot in an everyday context, but definitely in a sports competition, that's what you do. And because they identify two people, you can use duel. Jonas Vingor, winner last year after a second place in 2021. Okay, so he won the Tour de France in 2022, and in 2021, he came in second. So he came in second, and Slovenian Pogačar, the 2020 and 2021 champion. So remember, Vingor was the winner in 2022, but Pogačar was the winner in 2021. But then Vingor was the runner-up. So he came in second place in 2021 when Pogačar won. And then when Pogačar won in 2021, Vingor was the runner-up. So they've been neck and neck. That's a good idiom. These two, I'm not going to say their names again, they've been neck and neck for years. So neck and neck is when two competitors are level. Level is right here or just slightly above, slightly below each other and have an equal chance of winning. So either one could easily win the Tour de France. Yet Pogačar's form remains unknown after breaking his wrist on April 23rd. For Vingor, the question first concerns his ability to resist the pressure of defending his title. Because right now he is the title holder because he won the last Tour de France. So who do you think will win? I have no idea who these people are. So I'm going to choose Pogačar because his name was easier for me to pronounce. Who do you think will win? Share in the comments. Safety in spotlight. This is our next point. The death of the Swiss rider Gino Mader mid-June. Mid is the middle of June. You can just say mid-June. So someone might say, oh, when is that report due? Mid next week. It's due mid next week. So which means the middle of next week. So Wednesday. It's due mid next week, or I'm taking vacation in mid-September, for example, in the middle of September. So the second week of September is not precise, but somewhere around the middle. Mid-June, descending a mountain, descending, going down, a mountain in the Tour of Switzerland. I did not know there was a Tour of Switzerland. The Tour of Switzerland plunged the peloton. Remember, the peloton was a group of riders in a bike race. So think of just a group of cyclists. That's the peloton. Plunged. This is when you move or fall quickly and suddenly, and often a long distance as well. Plunge. So to move or fall. And in this case, most likely it's fall. He fell so on his bike, so he's cycling, and then he plunged. So just imagine he's here and then all of a sudden he's just gone somewhere quite far. So to move, fall quickly, suddenly, like unexpectedly. Plunge the peloton into disarray. Disarray is chaos because they're all cycling in a very organized way. But then disarray would be now they're all cycling in completely different directions. So there is a lot of chaos. So chaos, disarray. Chaos not organized, I guess you can think of it. Chaos not organized. And reignited. So here we have ignited, which means when you ignite something, you start something. We commonly use this with fire. So you can ignite a barbecue because there's a fire involved in that, which means to start the barbecue. So ignite. Ignite is the verb. And then reignite is to start again. So reignited the debate. It implies over safety. So it implies in the past, they were debating safety concerns. And now, because it reignited, his death reignited the debate. So now they're debating again. So they debated, they stopped, and now they're debating again. Reignited. So restarted. You can think of it as restarted. Restarted the debate over safety. Accustomed to exceeding 100 kilometers an hour downhill, many riders shared their apprehension while recalling that danger is an integral part of their sport. So an integral part of, an essential part of. That's difficult, that danger is an essential part of cycling. I don't know if I would want to be a cyclist in that case. I wonder why danger is an essential part of cycling. That doesn't seem right to me, but I am not a cyclist. Accustomed to, this is another way of simply saying that they're familiar with. So when they're talking about the riders are familiar with exceeding 100 kilometers. It's something that they do a lot. So they're comfortable doing it. So they're familiar with, they're comfortable with because they've done it many, many times. Familiar with or comfortable with because they've done it many times. Comfortable with. Exceeding. I would not want to exceed 100 kilometers. Think of a car going 100 kilometers. Now imagine yourself on a bike downhill. That would be terrifying for me. Okay. Our last point, COVID concerns. As in the last 3 tours, staff, journalists, and guests will have to wear masks when in contact with riders. Okay, so staff, journalists, and guests have to wear masks. And this has been the situation for the last 3 tours because they said as in the last 3 tours. So they're saying this is what is going to be now. And that's also what it was like in 2022, 1, and 2020. So they have to wear masks when in contact with riders. who are advised. Now this who are, it's the riders. The riders are advised to avoid selfies and autographs. Autographs is when you sign your name. Can I have your autograph? Oh, sure. And then they sign their name and they give it to you. Can I have your autograph? So do you have anyone's autograph? Anyone famous? Can I have your autograph? I don't think I have anyone's autograph, anyone famous. Okay, avoid is a gerund verb. You don't see it here because they don't have a verb. They're using a noun. But if it were a verb, you would say they're advised to avoid. What would be the verb you would need to turn this? Advised to avoid selfies. What if I wanted to put this into a verb? What would it be? Do you know? Advised to avoid taking selfies, because you take a picture and a selfie is a picture, and we need the gerund verb. And avoid taking selfies and giving autographs, because that's, can I have? Sure, I can give you my autograph. So avoid taking selfies and giving autographs. So verb, gerund, verb, because avoid is a gerund verb. And those are the 5 things you need to know about the Tour de France. I certainly learned a lot about the Tour de France because it's something I do not follow and really know nothing about. So now what I'll do is I'll read the article from start to finish, and this time you can focus on my pronunciation, but don't learn the pronunciation of those 2 cyclist names because I'm not exactly sure how to pronounce them, but I did my best. 5 things to know before the 2023 Tour de France. 25th start outside France. The tour will kick off outside France for the 25th time. It will be the second start from the Spanish Basque Country after San Sebastian in 1992. After 2 stages entirely in Spain, the peloton heads for Bayonne in France. Cities pay dearly for the right to host the Grand Départ, which race organizers insist expands the international influence of one of the biggest sporting events in the world. A very mountainous race. With nearly 56,000 meters of climbing, a record 30 passes, 5 French mountain ranges, and a single time trial, this tour presents a tough profile that favors climbers. Pogačar-Vingegaard Summit Duel. Jonas Vingegaard, winner last year after a second place in 2021, and Slovenian Pogačar, the 2020 and 2021 champion, then runner-up in 2022, are the big favorites. Yet Pogačar's form remains unknown after breaking his wrist on April 23rd. For Vingegaard, the question first concerns his ability to resist the pressure of defending his title. Safety in spotlight. The death of the Swiss rider Gino Mader mid-June, descending a mountain in the Tour de Switzerland, plunged the peloton into disarray and reignited the debate over safety. Accustomed to exceeding 100 kilometers an hour downhill, many riders shared their apprehension while recalling that danger is an integral part of their sport. COVID concerns. As in the last 3 tours, staff, journalists, and guests will have to wear masks when in contact with riders who are advised to avoid selfies and autographs.
Did you like this lesson? Well, then make sure you subscribe so you're notified every time I post a lesson just like this. And you can get this free speaking guide where I share 6 tips on how to speak English fluently and confidently. You can get it from my website right here or look in the description for the link. And why don't you get started with your next lesson right now?